joining us at New Designers. We're going to be discussing the presence of augmented reality and 3D in online retail. And we've got our wonderful panel here with us today. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Nice. So my name is Emric John-Sawyer. I'm a designer at Heatherwick Studio. And yeah, it's quite surreal being here. Last time I was here, we exhibited our work in 2019, so it's come full circle. So yeah, it's very nice to be speaking here today.
Great. Hi, I'm Alex Hamilton. I'm the head of technology innovation at Made.com with a big focus on 3D and augmented reality.
Hi, I'm Michael. I used to work at IKEA for many years, so I've been to a million of these kind of events back in the days. But right now, I founded a company called London Dynamics, where we do augmented reality and allow businesses to enter the three-dimensional digital world. And thank you for making me feel so old up here, everyone.
And I'm Sophie. I'm hosting our discussion today, and I exhibited here as well over 10 years ago. So it's nice to be in a different seat, but I will know how you're feeling, and I hope you've had a really good show so far. So I think the discussion needs to start with what really is AR. I think it's quite a new technology. It's definitely been in the presence of online retail in the last few years. So to you, Michael, I would love you to explain a little bit to our audience about what is AR, VR, and the Metaverse.
Yeah, so there are all these different concepts going around, and I hear a lot of very clever people describing it. And even the clever people that I listen to describing it describes it slightly different. So if you really dumb it down, you can say virtual reality, which is not augmented reality. Virtual reality is you put the glasses on and you're in a complete 100% digital world. Augmented reality, so you're not in the real world, you're only in the digital world, or your brain is. Now, augmented reality is you're in the real world and you superimpose an object in front of you. Today you do that with your phone or with a headset. With the phone, you can see how furniture would look like, so you can place the furniture by looking through your phone in the room. And if you put on a Magic Leap headset, you can throw a ball that doesn't exist, but you can see it in your headset, and it bounces off the wall and the things in your room. So that's augmented reality. Then people talk about mixed reality. And what's the difference between mixed reality and augmented reality? I don't know. I think it's a stage that we will reach. One thing is for sure, the internet that didn't exist when I was a kid, that came to place, was two-dimensional up until the last few years. So it's pictures, it's photos, it's videos. Now the internet is going three-dimensional and is experiential and is in the real world and exists at many places. So it's going to be, whatever you call it, you know, where we are going into is a three-dimensional digital world that blends all together. And that's what some people also call the Metaverse. Yeah, so that's kind of like a concept or an idea. Anybody play Fortnite? Yes, only one. That's a lie. I know at least half of you play Fortnite. So Fortnite is like a super tiny Metaverse where you have an experience, you're together with your friends, you look at what kind of shoes you have on, you go to a concert, and you play some games. That's a tiny expression of a Metaverse. And one day, there's going to be no difference between if there is a picture on that wall or if it's augmented for you. You cannot tell the difference in the future.
That's
Yes?
really great. Yeah, thank you for explaining that. So we've got just a slide next up which shows you a little bit of London Dynamics software that we have implemented into this website to give people a really good idea of once they've designed a three-dimensional bicycle on the website of Colnago, which is a well-known bike brand, they can then see the bicycle in their surroundings by using integrated software. So they don't even have to leave the website, which enables someone to really visualize what the bicycle looks like, either at home or potentially if you're going to have it on the wall, hanging up in your house. I know my husband's a big bike fan, so he loves to stare at his bicycle. So this is an example of the 3D realism that is possible with augmented reality. And you can see that in your surroundings. So I've just got a few statistics up here taken from Snap Incorporated's consumer research. You can see that by 2025, nearly 75% of the world's population will be smartphone owners and frequent users of AR. It's generally seen as a toy, but 76% of people expect and desire to use it as a practical tool in their everyday lives. And interacting with products that have AR experiences leads to a 94% higher conversion rate. So we can really see an impact it's having on online at the moment. So my first question, Alex, is to you. So Made.com has always been heavily focused online, even before the pandemic. So how have you seen consumer behaviours change over the last 2 years? And would you expect AR to be the answer to a fully immersive customer experience?
I definitely think AR is on the up. So since the beginning of the pandemic, being able to, so on the Made website, we have augmented reality like the video you just saw. We also have it in our app, which is a slightly more
Shall I go on to the
richer
next slide to
experience.
show you
Yep, sure.
these ones?
So these are all the places where we're using AR at the minute at Made.com. So you can see the first image there is Google search. We're on the beta for being able to, if you search for a sofa on Google, you'll get a search result and you can go directly into AR, which drives more traffic to our website. Mm-hmm. We're doing experiments with Facebook to put AR directly in Facebook. Again, it drives huge engagement and drives traffic to our website. And then once you're on our website, we've got two things going on. So you can view a product in 3D with the dimensions shown against it, so you can get an idea of scale, and then you can place it in the room, as Michael showed you. The previous video showed you, and it looks pretty realistic. I mean, I haven't put the slide here, but I tried it with a lamp I actually own side by side, and half the people I showed it to couldn't tell which was which. Mm-hmm. So it is very engaging. Obviously, since the pandemic, more and more people have been using it, and we found that it actually performs better than product videos on our product pages.
I'm going to hop to the next slide here because you've got some interesting statistics. I'd love you to enlarge a little bit on the minus statistics. I think that's also, we all expect to see positive numbers from statistics, but sometimes we actually learn a lot more from negative numbers. So could you talk us through that?
Yeah, I included this one deliberately. So these are the results from a test we did with Facebook, comparing, so most of our adverts would just be a lifestyle image of a product in a room scene, and it would take you straight through to the product details with just photos and video, i.e. the old style, as Michael was talking about. We did an A/B test. So an A/B test is where half the people see the old version, and the other half see the other version being an AR experience. So I put the negative number in there deliberately, just to show slightly fewer people tried it, because there's a bit of friction. It's the first time it takes a bit of mental gymnastics to try it out the first time. But as you can see, all the other numbers are very, very positive. So once people do try it, they're much more likely to buy, they spend more, and it is a great acquisition tool. That 40% number, when Facebook asked people who'd tried the augmented reality experience, they had a much better ad recall than the people who saw the same old thing that they see everywhere from all other companies.
Fascinating. Michael, in sort of response to that, how have you found working with clients and how it increases sort of conversions? How do they measure that? And how do you see that across different product spheres, so working with different clients?
Yeah, so I was actually wondering, how many in here uses augmented reality? How many tried it ever in their life? Ever? How many uses it on a daily basis? Okay, only one and two. Okay, no, it's just interesting, because it is like the younger you are, the easier it is to pick it up and use it, and the more enthusiastic you are about it, and the more easygoing you are. Where a lot of typical clients are a little bit older, and they're like, oh, it's so complicated to use this phone, and it's complicated to use AR. So there's all these hurdles, and you see that in a stats like this from Made.com. So I say, like, the younger, the better, because you guys know how to use tech, and you grew up with it, and it's just super natural. So it depends a lot on the target group, to answer your question. If it's an old target group, you have maybe just the 360 spin, which you have on a website where you can really inspect the product and zoom in on it. is more valuable than the augmented reality feature. And if it's for young people, it's the other way around, I would say.
No,
Yeah.
brilliant. I think that's covered that. Is this the example of the
Oh,
light
so
at
that,
home?
yes, that's the example I was
I think that's
talking
brilliant.
about.
So let's let the audience guess, which one is the augmented one? The one to the right? Raise your hands. The one to the left? Which one is it?
The one on the left is the real product.
Ah, okay, that's good. You
I
passed.
suppose that's down to the quality of the 3D asset as well that's created.
Exactly, yeah.
Brilliant. So 3D and AR can play a huge part in sort of sustainability within a company as well. Emric, sort of moving on to you, sustainability is such a strong message in Heatherwick Studios. How can you use 3D and AR as a tool to implement this?
Yeah. Well, it's quite difficult in a sense that we don't sell a product. We are often known for our big buildings, huge forms, and sometimes we do have fewer products, smaller products, but we like to think that things take time at Heatherwick Studio. We like to have a personal touch. So because of that, we only recently started to look at implementing 3D, VR, and AR into our systems. COVID slightly helped with that because we were forced to have conversations online. We have many projects abroad in China, America, all over the country. And when you can't have face-to-face meetings, and we're so hands-on, and we like doing our models, we like showing materiality in person. When you can't do that, you're forced to think of a new way, a more innovative way of doing that. When we started playing with 3D and AR and VR, we thought, okay, how can we show a product to someone who's many miles away and convince them? Save them on having to get an airplane flight all the way over just to look at an image which they could have just seen online, or how do we save money on shipping over some samples over to someone? And that is where our main saving comes with sustainability. We can just show them a quick Zoom call. Of course, you have the energy consumption of laptops and screens and so on, but if we can have a quick Zoom call and show them the product or the building, the interior side of things, the furniture. If we can show that through a program online, then it convince them, then it can be really, 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 really good. So that's kind of the main part of sustainability where we saved. We've saved on materiality, we've saved on costs of flying out, shipping products, and you can also save on outsourcing things. If we can do it ourselves and be convincing enough to do it ourselves, then again, it saves on another company having to process loads of things and make things, and yeah, that's kind of the main part.
And one of Heatherwick's, you're known very much for your model making,
Yes,
and that's a physical item
Yeah.
that you then show the client. How do you think the transition into 3D, will you stop model making, or will you continue to do that and reinforce it with 3D and digital?
I think we'll continue. I had a chat with two members of our team who specialize in G-code, VR, and AR. So they specialize in two separate parts. With model making, me personally, I like to, from the get-go, start model making. But of course, when you have a discussion about sustainability, you can't always do that unless you're recycling and reusing your model. Mm-hmm. One way in which we're able to do that is if we can use AR, 3D, and VR to get over those first stages, concept stages, and just design online. And then when it comes to more final products where you kind of have to see something in 3D, because until the technology get there, and it will get there, and it will surpass one day, but until we get there, if we can just bypass the earlier stages by doing those concept models and looking at a model in AR with your phone, and the client is many miles away, and you can just send them the model and they look at it in their house almost. Mm-hmm. That's a really easy way to of how we've started to implement it.
Because you work a lot with enormous buildings and structures. Could you see it applied in that sense to, you go outside, you go to the space, there's enormous space your buildings are going to be built in, and genuinely see that in AR in that space?
Yes, yeah. So if you show the next slide. So what we've got here is these two images in the corners. They are, this admittedly is VR, but we've also tried to implement in AR as well. And it's looking at one of our projects that is known to the public. It's called the Apple Project, which you can see a image of it there. And what we've tried to do is, superimpose it in, or use your phone and see it in space. It's still quite new to us. Admittedly, we're still working on getting it down. But being able to do that, and also being able to go inside the building when it's not even been made yet. There's still maybe 2 or 3 years before we're even going to have this building made. Being able to do all of these things allows us to, again, just look at materiality, look at design changes, maybe if we wanted to change a curve here, look at measurements. There's so many things we can do. And again, if we can do that without having someone have to come all the way over, taking an airplane flight or shipping many materials or having huge meetings that take up everyone's time, then it's all a plus.
And AR can also be viewed through a headset. Is that something you've experimented with as well, to really look inside a building?
Yeah, so I think to get a real sense of, you can use your phone to get a sense of scale of the building, but to get a real immersive experience, a headset, at the moment anyway, until there's glasses that can possibly do that, is the best way that we can do that. You really feel, if you have an open space and you just picture yourself inside this huge building that's over 20 feet tall, and seeing all of the curves and the bends and the lumps and bumps of the building, it's a really good way to have a discussion about design.
Yeah, amazing. So we've got some statistics here about online activities. So consumers are looking forward to shifting a range of activities online into a virtual world. So when consumers were asked which activities they would prefer to do in a virtual world as opposed to the physical world, shopping and the purchasing of physical goods was one of the top activities. This lends itself a little bit to the next question, talking about the Metaverse. What preparations are you making for the Metaverse? Mike, I think we'll start with you. How are you looking toward, where do you see retail within the Metaverse in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, so you can say, like, if the internet is moving three-dimensional, you need to have an infrastructure that facilitates that, and you need to have, for the businesses, a commercial infrastructure that facilitates it. It doesn't just magically appear. It's like you have the capability of showing a video on your website, but you still have to go out and shoot the video, which is, if you're Gucci or Made.com, you want to shoot your own video. Nobody else is going to do that for you. So you have to start thinking about creating content. So I hope if you are, is there any designers in here? Yeah. How many of you design digitally as well as physically? Very good, because it's going to be just as important. There's going to be absolutely no difference in your in the importance of the digital object. But the thing is that, so how do you then serve it? Do you have a way to serve it today, the content? So if you digitally design something, do you have a way of sending that across the globe? No? Yes? Yes? A few? So, and these are capability everybody needs, and that's how you can reach many people. Instead of standing here and reach 10,000 people, you can reach 1 million people online with almost the same experience. So I think, like, this is just the beginning of, what was your question? Sorry, I got awful of that.
So what would you, what advice would you give brands?
Exactly, the advice is, whenever you build something, build it digitally. Wherever you start digitally. Do it digitally, because you're going to need that. Nobody's going to make it for you. It doesn't magically appear. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, we aim to have a digital twin of all of our products.
Yes.
We're sort of halfway there at the moment, but.
And you're a market leader in this. Like, Made.com is absolutely revolutionary in how far they are with this. Yeah, and they're halfway there. Yeah.
You see a lot of furniture brands in the US. They've seen in the press that they partner with sort of Pinterest to use AR to see how furniture will live in their living rooms. People have been buying real estate in the Metaverse. They're not quite sure what it's going to be yet, but could you see an online shopping experience? Could you see Made.com buying a shop in the Metaverse so your customers could purchase via a channel?
I think absolutely. We don't know where it's going to go. It's a bit like the early internet. Could go in many different directions. But I think if we work on the assumption that every website will have a digital twin that's a virtual space, I'd imagine Made will have something.
And do you have a project, a team that works on that tries to predict what that will look like in 5 years' time, or is it something?
Well, my team are looking at it, but we're not actively working on the Metaverse at the moment. Yeah. But yeah, we're keeping an an ear to the ground, as it were. And I think the most exciting thing that it opens up is you don't have the physical constraints in a virtual world that you have in a physical space, i.e. you can have a chair floating in the middle of space. So I think we'll get much more creative experiences in the metaverse.
I think Nike is a really good example. So I don't know if you've seen it, but Nike, they are the first company who sold digital shoes only. And then they were so popular, these digital shoes, you got them as a digital item only, that they start making those in real life. So typically it goes the other way. You have something in real life and you put it in 3D, but Nike is already so advanced that they're doing the other way around. So they're like trading across digital and physical with no boundaries already.
I think Nike's a very good example of creating digital communities as well, and I think that's a really important tool that the metaverse can be used for, especially with sort of Heatherwick Studios. You potentially, I was looking at the tree you created for the Golden Jubilee. Unless you are in London and you can come and see that tree, I would say that it's impossible to see that in person. Yeah. How could you create communities using AR and the metaverse so that people on the other side of the world can experience your designs?
Yeah. I mean, that is something, that specific example is something that we're currently working on, just being able to look at the products we make that are sometimes temporary. You know, that tree wasn't going to be outside Buckingham Palace forever. So there's many things that we make that we want people to have that experience. Yeah, I think us working on our ways and trying not to be left behind, because the internet is going to go, and it's either you're on board with it or you're not, and we want to be on board with it. So trying to find ways to use AR and VR to create those experiences for everyone is definitely
I can imagine, you know, whilst they're building in the metaverse, that there's a Heatherwick Studios construction there, and you can go and visit it. That's an amazing experience. And to obviously build these structures digitally, there's a whole array of software out there that people have to be trained on. Our next question leads into, for everyone in the room, you, I'm sure, have many skills in digital software. What could you say that Heatherwick Studios, which programs do you use, and what do you look for in someone coming to work for you?
Yeah. So one that we quite use, and until this panel, I didn't realize we used it as much in a VR sense, is Enscape. We design in Rhino. I preferably love Rhino, but there's preference for SolidWorks. Any 3D software you can make, and then we take that into Enscape, and that allows you to have a live 3D view and walk around and view the building to scale. That's what we use quite a lot in all of our products. When it comes to just an image, we use things like Keyshot or V-Ray. There's many different things you can do, even adding some Photoshop here and there. But
would you want someone starting with you to know those programs, or is it something you train people up on?
It definitely gets trained up on. It's good if you have a basic knowledge of it, but I feel like once you know one, you kind of know all. If you know how to make a box in Rhino, you can kind of know how to make a box in SketchUp, and in SolidWorks. It's quite similar, but we would train you in what you need to be learned, to what your role is. If you've been hired to make some buildings for us, and then you'll be trained in to learn all of the things that are specific to that. If you're hired as me to do more furniture and interior things, then they train you to do those things very well. So you kind of, and you can learn whatever you want. You can always go over to someone else and be like, hey, can you give me a quick lesson or a quick lunchtime talk on how to do things? So you definitely learn and build up as a designer. But it's definitely good to have a small base. Just a couple of YouTube videos should get you on the way. Yeah.
How about at made.com?
Well, our models are generally built either in Blender for, we outsource our 3D modeling to suppliers, but generally they're either made in Blender or 3ds Max, and then we convert the files to whatever format we need at the end. But for doing photography quality images from 3D, it's generally 3ds Max with V-Ray. V-Ray seems to be the gold standard of lighting.
And would you look for someone to employ someone who has those skills already, or help them with their training?
Again, I would say exactly what Emric said. I think if you know the concepts of 3D and if you've used one of them, you'll pick up the others quite easily. So we were deliberately quite vague when we hired our CGI lead recently. 3ds Max is his preference, but he can use Blender, and the concepts are similar. It just takes a couple of days to work out where all the items are on the menus.
And how about you, Michael? What do you?
Well, I would say, like, I think the software doesn't really matter that much. There's going to be a lot of different software coming out. All the ones you mentioned, Rhino, Blender, all of it is good. I think about, most people forget about real-time AR. So to make something in three-dimensional as a CGI is really, really easy. You don't have to think about file size and texture and lighting and all those things. If you're serving real-time AR, you have to take all those things into consideration, or it's going to look like shit. It's going to look like a game. It's not going to look real. It's not going to pick up the reflection in the right way. So think as the only standard right now, I would say, is GLB. Make sure you can make a GLB, because that you can translate into GLCF and into USDZ, and it's like the closest you come to a JPEG of a 3D model. So don't matter that much about the software. Make sure you can make a GLB, and make sure that you keep it 5-10 megabyte maximum. Otherwise, nobody's going to sit and wait for it. Yeah.
That sounds like a good bit of sound advice. I'd love to just touch on what would be your last bit of advice for anyone looking to get a job in design and looking towards the future.
Honestly, I think stay true to yourself and why you chose to design. For me, I got this role at Heatherwick, not for all of the work I did before, not for any of the fancy buildings and resorts and restaurants that I did before, because they said if we wanted to see that, we'll just go to the restaurant. It was actually my university project that got me the design, and it was just a simple bar stool with steam bent legs that twisted. And it was just my love for that and pure design, nothing behind it, not trying too hard to get a job, that got me what I find is my favorite job that I'll stay at forever. So just stay true to what you like and your design style, and someone will come to you, or you can go to someone else that really marry the two styles together, and you'll fit in like a glove. Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. How about you, Alex?
Well, I'd say come up with a concept you think would help someone out. Flesh out, storyboard it, and then build it. Work out what you need to learn along the way. There's everything on YouTube, pretty much, that you need to learn. A lot of the software, like Blender, is free. You can learn how to develop in Unity, depending on if you want to be more on the software development side or more of the modeling side. You can aim your project towards the area you're more interested in.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Michael?
What was your question? There was the advice.
One piece of advice would you give?
Imagine you have £1 million in the bank. What would you do? Because then you don't have to think about commercial activities and all those things. Then you would do what you really would like to do, and where your passion lies, because you wouldn't care about all the other things. But I think like the most important is you make something that is real. I see a lot of design out here. What's the percentage of the designs out here that's actually going to make it into a shop? What is the percentage of the design, like of businesses, when you start business in general, it's like you have to solve some sort of problem. And it could be that your problem is solving just to make beautiful design, because people want that. But I see a lot of times people try to do all kind of sustainability and cram everything into one, and it becomes this weird thing that like you get home blind. So take a step back, ask your friends, what do you think? Is this really a viable product? But really solve the problem. If you don't solve the problem, nobody's ever going to give you money for it. It's that simple. If you don't solve the problem, nobody's ever going to give you. It doesn't work like it worked like that the last few years, because the governments, they printed so much money, so it's like a massive amount of cash flow. I'm not even kidding. Like they printed so much money, and you have all these stupid ideas and entrepreneurs who does silly things that doesn't add value and just create a lot of buzz. So it's going to be washed out, and the ones that solve problems, they're going to survive. I don't want to get too political here.
No, I think that's a brilliant note to end on. And I'm hoping that we have some questions from the audience. I think we've got a microphone somewhere, so we can hear you. Yes.
Thank you. How much is VR and AR used within the design process? So you haven't even introduced it to the client yet, but you're sharing it within the team. How much is that done within the industry, and do you think that will increase?
Who would you like to pose that question to? All of them, or?
All of them, yes, please.
Yeah.
Repeat the last bit.
How much is AR and VR used within the design process? So the client hasn't seen your pitch yet, but shared between the team and
Yeah.
then worked upon with that?
Yeah, I'd say for us it's quite a lot actually. I had a meeting this morning actually, and it was we were talking about showing something in the team versus showing the final client. And when you show the final client, you have to kid it down. You have to just show something very simple, very basic. Whereas if you're a bunch of designers all using the same program, you can just really get in there and show them the process live and direct. It doesn't have to be a formal meeting, like, hey, can you come over here and look at this? Or like, look at this, and put the headset on and then watch them roll around. So it's used quite a lot because that gives you, it's almost like I mentioned before, that gives you the closest way to something real without the actual real model. And if you can design something with having a real model at all times or having AR at all times, then you're always going to go in the right track and create something real and good. So yeah.
How about you, Alex?
At the moment, so at Made, we obviously have 3D files before the manufacturing process. I don't think we actually use AR so much, but we share those files so you have a visualization of it. I can definitely see it going to a stage where we have what looks like the finished product before we can even show customers before we make it available on our website.
And using 3D, am I right in saying until someone places an order, the product isn't made, or do you make each product to order?
We do put them live before. Yeah, we'll launch them with some confidence. We'll show them to people, but that's the obvious next step, is that you could feasibly gauge interest in a product before it's been physically manifested.
Yeah, I think we're coming out of the age where people need a product tomorrow. I think people are willing to now invest in time if it's sustainable, especially if they know they're buying a product which hasn't been made yet. It's made for them specifically. So it's interesting how those consumer behaviours are changing, and I think people are becoming more patient with something that they're going to buy online, and they'll realise that it hasn't been made yet. What are the lead times on your products?
It varies. A large proportion of it depends where it's made and how well it sells. Ironically, if it's made far away and it sells better than expected, it can make the lead time for the next people quite long.
Yeah.
But generally, we try and keep it within a few weeks. And we've got the best sellers will come in 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. And Michael, working with...
I think the next, she's ready with the next question, but just to answer, just do 100%. You have to make the 3D anyways, otherwise nobody can produce it for you unless you're producing it yourself. Obviously, you can just kind of like wing it in your workshop. So just do it 100% of the time, because it is the new thing. It's like a guarantee. It's like artificial intelligence is going to take over the world in many dimensions, and so is the 3-dimensional internet that's coming. Like there's no way around it. She looked like she had another question. No?
Another question?
No? Yeah.
This gentleman over here.
Oh, thanks. So I'm just wondering what the role of the architect is going to be in this like digital metaverse world. So I'm more of like a UX designer, but it seems like digital designers are going to at least have to pay more consideration to digital architecture. Or I'm just curious what you think about that intersection and what we're going to perhaps have to deal with, or how roles are going to change.
I would say probably Emric might be one to...
And how roles will change due to...
Yeah, because it sounds like digital designers are going to have to work more like with architects, whereas before there's been this kind of gap of apps just exist on your phone and that's it. Whereas you've got these digital spaces, which are still going to need, obviously, products to go on there. So I'm kind of wondering how those disciplines, you might see those interacting.
Yeah, I definitely think it would be a healthy blend, especially if you're in a big enough company that have departments doing those things anyway. You're naturally always going to merge and come together. So there's definitely always going to be working with, and even more so, crossover of designs. Because you're right, right now it feels like that's a group of designers, that's a group of designers, that's a group. Why are we not all working together to make something, or why are we not have a project which requires each set of designers? So yeah, I definitely think in the future and going forward, and even now, it's blending more and more.
Well, thank you so much. I'm afraid we're out of time, but thanks everyone for coming to listen to us, and do come and grab us if you have any questions.